everyone, and welcome back to another JCT Talks podcast.
Today's episode, we will be talking about politics in past elections.
Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Now on to this podcast. So today we're going to be talking about politics and past elections and all that in the USA, not other countries. I know other countries have that different stuff, but in the USA. So we're doing this topic right now because, as most of you know, in the US that there is an election going on right now. So we thought that it would be kind of nice to have a little episode going over a few things. So I'm going to start us off, and that is going to be so past election. There's been 55 presidents so far in the United States of America, the first one being George Washington. And I remember I've seen some videos on every single time, like who's won each election. And I saw this one that really sticks out to me every time. I always bring it up, seems like once a week. Nowadays, maybe more like once a month, but nowadays more like once a week. And that is this one election that was from either the 70s or early 80s. I can't remember which one it was. And the election was every single state in the United States of America voted for one person, and then one state voted for the other person. I was like, and once I saw that, that just was like crazy, because I mean, sometimes everyone likes this one president and then some other people maybe just don't. So that's just crazy to me. I mean, I don't know how that president got like everyone except one state on his side, but I don't know how. But that's really sticking out to me. I'm sure it's sticking out to a lot of people. And so most of you know, in the U.S. politics, we have different parties that you can run for. The two major ones being Republican and Democrat, and then there are a few other ones like Independent. I kind of forget the other ones. I know them, but I just can't remember them. So yeah, I know that there's like more than you would think. Like there's like 6 or something, but the two major ones, or I guess the 3 major ones, which is Independent, Republican, and Democrat. Those are the 3 basically major ones. I mean, I know there's technically 2 major ones, but there are still like a lot of independents out there in the United States of America. So every single state has a governor, a Senate, or 2 Senates, and Congress, right? And that's a lot of politicians in the United States of America. Plus, we have a president, vice president. I mean, that's just a lot. There's a lot of people. People represent states, and that's kind of what it makes. That we have that in place, so then we don't have these crazy, not the best laws put in place. So then it goes through the Senate and then the House, or the House and Senate. So then we can get just stuff put into place, and you can vote for who you want to represent your state, of course. And there's a lot of politics, and you normally learn more about politics when you're getting older in like high school, college, maybe even middle school. But I think that this is a very important topic to go over, because maybe some people are like, don't bring up politics. We don't want to get all, controversial or anything. And I get that, but it's also pretty important to go over, because politics are very important. So maybe don't talk about specific people that you want, and then maybe other people don't want. Then you could get into a little bit of an argument there. But if you just talk about like politics itself, then maybe you could be clear. But I'd say just to normally stay clear of that at the dinner table, maybe. But I think politics is it's a very important thing. Some people put their lives to it. And the thing is, you might think, I can be a politician. I want to be a politician when I grow up. But then you realize how hard it really can be. I mean, you have to think of stuff on the spot. You're getting asked really tricky questions. You have to think, that you're going to be in charge of like your state or your country, and you got to really think about that. So it can be very tricky. So that's why you know, you gotta respect politicians, because they have a kind of a hard job to do, because they're thinking of stuff, they're planning stuff, they're doing all this different stuff. And yeah, it's very important to and I know like nowadays, you know, back in the day we had kings and like and castles, queens, all that stuff, and it wasn't really the best put in place, because that was dictatorship, and that is not the best, because you know, you could be born in the you know, you could be born in the royal family, but maybe you are not the best at thinking of stuff. Maybe you aren't the best at that, so then you're just going to be like the king or queen, and you're going to be like they're like, we need to tell you something. There's something really bad. A dragon's heading our way. I know dragons aren't real, but maybe that's what you say. And then they're like, um, um, uh, I don't know. I don't know what we should do. You don't want to have that. That's why we've kind of have the politics. And I know, pretty sure most every country, has. I know in other countries they might not be called presidents, but they're basically the same thing, like prime ministers. And then in England you still have the Queen of England, but there's a prime minister of England too, you know, to put some more stuff in place. And I don't not the best at other country politics. I don't know how they work all of their stuff. I know how the US does because I live in the US, so I know how all of that works, but not really you know, that. And also, and like putting laws in place. And also, like, the thing is, like, if you want to, you can, a normal person can try to pass a law. You don't have to be a politician to pass a law. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows that, but some people might not. And it's just important to think that you can make change too. I mean, you can. I mean, but you can come up with a law idea and try to pass it. I mean, it might not work, but it's a good try if you want to try something. Just don't do a bad law, like all squirrels should be banned from the US. That's not the best law idea, because squirrels, I mean, I know in the Daniel Vitalis episode, Jake shared that he has a squirrel going around that has been stealing all of his food. Maybe that squirrel could go to prison, but like not all squirrels. So I think that's why we have the House, the Senate, the president, all of this stuff put in place to stop laws like all squirrels should be banned, like, you know, for instance. And it's very complicated. My dad actually majored in political science, so he knows quite a bit about politics. But yeah, so I know, like, yeah, each state. I know I'm not a politician. I mean, first of all, I'm too young, and I know, like, I don't know everything about this. So maybe you know more. I don't know everything. So if you think that I said something wrong, then just let me know. But that's pretty much. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go over with politics, because there is a lot in that. In that category, it's a lot to think about. And also past elections too. We've had a lot of past elections, and you can look. It's like I was saying, like some maps that I've looked over have had different. Like you could look over at the first one and be like, "What? Why is there a pink color on the map? I've never seen a pink color. What party is that?" I mean, there's been different parties there at times, I think, but yeah, I know that you can look back. I mean, now it's just the Democrat and Republican Party. I mean, there's a lot more, but those are the two major ones. Where back in the day, there was a lot more. That's why you can look back on like the maps of past elections and see like 10 different colors, because, well, that's how kind of that worked back then. And you know, the thing is, like, with starting a country, I don't know why you would, because I mean, I don't know why, but you have to come up with politics to put stuff in place to have a country. It could be very difficult. That's why it took years and years and years to come up to like work with all this. But they finally got it put in place, and we got the Senate, the House, the president, the governor, all of these different things nowadays that they might have never thought what could happen when they were starting to develop different countries. Well, the U.S. has the Senate, House, President, but governor. But I don't know about other countries. Anyway, I think that's going to finish me up for now. So if Jake would like to take the floor, then he may do that.
Yes, I would love to take the floor over. And politics is a very interesting subject because every country has their own politics. And this is very hard because most of our viewers are from Canada. And the United States, where Callum and I live in, have the legislative branch, judicial branch, the executive branch, these main positions like in our different states. But Canada doesn't have states. They've got provinces and they've got a president, and it's some parallel. So think about as England, and they have a queen. Now that queen has been ruling for over 50 years now, I believe, and that's a long time. But U.S. presidents are only allowed to serve terms of 8 years, and that's each term is 4 years, and they aren't allowed to serve over 8 years. And the only president that has ever served over 8 years is FDR, because they didn't have these rules established from 2 terms. Because if you have over 2 terms and someone's really good, like Callum said, if someone just really likes the person, they're going to rule for the rest of their life. And America has established these rules to make sure that they can't rule for their entire life and keep it the way that they want it. Now, the president has a lot of power. And America right now is in an election, and Callum and I are actually filming on November 6th, which means the episode will come out on next Wednesday, which means we're filming about 5 days in advance. So you never really know how our ideas might change, our topics might change, because that daily news could be different and something might come up. Now, right now, the presidential race in the United States is undecided. States are too close, and what happened was voting happened on Tuesday, November 3rd, in the United States of America. There were 2 candidates, Joe Biden, former vice president, and Donald J. Trump. Right now, he is president. Now, they are running against each other. It's very close. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen because counts happen. The differences are razor thin. It's crazy, but that's how America works. And if you look at America and see the parties that Callum was talking about, the 2 main parties are Democrat and Republican. But then you go to Independent, Green, and there's a bunch of other parties that you could think of, and they're just considered other parties. Now, the Republican and Democrat, it's really almost a 50-50 right now in America. It's very close together. And it depends on which states you live in. Like California, it's a Democratic state. Montana, it's a Republican state, and you never know. It used to be, 8 years ago, Texas used to be a very, very Republican state. Now, this election in the United States of America, it was very, very close in Texas. Now, this is what happens through the decades, the older, the boomer age and the millennials, and they all really have one party to themselves. They usually are like 80-20 or 70-30, depending on what party they are in, because that's something that they believe in, something that's affected them. Like right now, where we're growing up, we're going to care more about healthcare because the coronavirus affected us when we were growing up. So that's one of the things that is very interesting and how it can really affect a country. And one of the major events is the coronavirus happening right now, and you've probably experienced it and you've probably heard of it. Now, the coronavirus has really messed up a lot of elections and it's made it hard. In America right now, you've probably heard of mail-in ballots. Now, mail-in ballots are sent before the election, and they have to count them. States have to count them. And they are completely different than in-person voting. You get mailed a ballot. It's pretty much like absentee. Absentee is just you vote by mail. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple. It just takes a lot of time to count the ballots. They've got to match up signatures. And a lot of ballots, there's a higher percentage than you think get voided because the signature could be different. If your little bullet that you filled out, if there's a little line across it, if you put a check mark in it, it's out, it's voided. Now that's not good because really every vote counts in elections, and it's very important. And if you see the Supreme Court, the presidents, the Congress, all these different places, they run our United States of America as a whole. They have to work together. And the Senate, they make up a thing from their electoral college. There's 100 and some senators, and they have to go together, and whichever party has a majority of senators has control of the House. And this means that, or control the Senate or whatever, and that means that they usually, the laws that they're making usually get passed due to, if it's a Republican law that will benefit Republicans more and Democrats do not like the opinion of it or the idea of it, Republicans will most likely pass that law. But it's really just a 50-50 usually. It's very close in the House of Representatives and Senate. And that's why America has this electoral college, and a lot of states are flipping from Republican to Democrat and Democrat to Republican. And there's these parties that divide. Now, England, on the other hand, I'm just using England as an example, has a queen. Now, this queen has been in rule for years, like I said, and there's no election for queen. And the queen doesn't have much political power, as in the queen really just has specific, she, I don't know how to phrase this, fancy, like, ruler, pretty much. They say, like, allies with countries, but they don't make the laws as much as you would think. As in America, if you think, the president is the one that passes the laws after they pass Congress. And Congress is made up with the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, these two buildings go together, or these two groups of people go together, and they create laws. They pass laws, they make laws, it goes to Congress, and after it's passed in Congress, it goes to the president. And in one of these ideas is, if it's ever Congress is, let's say, for example, Congress is Republican, but the president is Democratic. Now, what happens if Congress passes a law and it's a Republican law and it goes to the president? That's Democratic. Now, the Democratic president, if he doesn't like the idea of that, he's going to say no, and he has all the power he wants to veto that law, which means the president has a lot of power. The president has more power than 400 elected officials. The president is higher, which means if they say, oh, we have this law, and he says no, the entire law is gone. Even if every single person votes yes on it, it's gone. But if you ever heard of the Supreme Court, now this is where it gets interesting. Now, they make sure that there's a balance in power. They make sure that the president isn't vetoing every single law. They make sure it's in a balance in power, and they can change laws. They make sure that the laws are finalized and enforced. There's a county court, there's a state court, there's a city court. It just goes up through the levels. And the Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States of America, which means only the biggest cases go there. For example, presidents, they are elected, but something happens. If voter fraud happens, if anything possible that is illegal to a very high level, impeachment or anything like that related to, like, big problem in the United States, it goes right to the Supreme Court. And they make the decision. They listen to hours of hearing. The impeachment, for example, President Trump's impeachment happened around a year ago, but he was impeached by the House, but the Senate did not, because they're Republican and President Trump is a Republican, which means that those weren't passed. Even though the House passed it, it didn't go through the Senate. So it didn't officially happen because both sides have to agree. The same thing with laws. And that's why you really have to work together. You have to make sure that the states elect correct people. Now, right now, I'm talking about Congress, Senate, and the president a lot. Now, remember, that's just the United States government. Then we go to state government. And this is a whole big story, and I won't get way too boring with it, but it's just the governor, it's delegates, they make up a whole state senators, and they all just vote on different laws for the state. They make up new things to add. They run on the ballot, and that's politics that you have to run. But then you also have county level or city level, where it's school board, And it really, you have to run as a whole. It can't just be just the president running everything. Because if the president runs everything, no, only laws are going to be passed that he likes or she likes. But if you run as a whole, then everybody can make decisions, and it's not the president can't control the school board. That he doesn't make the or she doesn't make those decisions. So it's an interesting how the United States government runs. It's one big thing. It's one big tree that goes out, and branches of government is a very good example because that's the main government I'm talking about. And that's something it's very important for the United States of America to be safe and a well-oiled machine. And so far, our country isn't horrible, and our economy is good. Environment could be better, but there's a lot of different factors that come into mind. And one of the main things that happen is there's other countries that have elections, and you've probably heard of it: wars and different natural disasters, economy from other countries. So allies help each other. Now, for example, the United States of America is allies with Canada. Now, Canada and the United States of America help each other. They trade. They're nice, and we border Canada. Now, that means that they'll help in war. They'll help in different things. But then there are some countries that are not allied with America, like, for example, North Korea. And they will, but they won't attack America because America has so many other allied countries. It's really hard because America is one of those countries that has a lot of countries that are allies with them. Think about it as if you have a map, or just the United States of America, I mean, not the world map, you see all the countries. I would say half of those countries are allies with the United States of America because there's a lot of allies with America. And I just got to look this up right now. How many allies? So there's a lot of foreign allies, and you probably heard of the United Nations, the UN. Now that's the world government, and they make world peace documents. They make the rules from the top level. Now you go county government, you go state government, you go the federal, there's a lot of governments that have to be followed. And if you've ever heard of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., it's the headquarters of everything. So I pretty much gave an overview of how the United States of America government works. That will finish me up for this part of the time. So Callum, do you have anything to add that's less boring than that?
Well, it's certainly not boring. It's very interesting. I mean, that was very awesome and very interesting, Jake. So thanks for sharing that today. Jake really went over a lot of the U.S. government and all of that. Yes, there are a lot of branches in each state. You might think, president and let me just think of the main two: the president, vice president, governors. I'd say our governors and the president are probably the most well known, maybe. I would say. But then you get there's a lot of other stuff put in place too. I mean, the mayor, that's also one. The mayor, the mayor. Everyone knows the mayor. Everyone knows the mayor. And sometimes I can assure you, in every single movie ever made, they brought up the mayor because the mayor's just the mayor, I probably the mayor's also probably pretty popular though too. The president is probably the most well known, the president's spot. And I'd say, I mean, I know this might not sound the best, but I'd say the mayor's more well known than the vice president. I think that you might learn about the vice president a little later on in life. Everyone knows the president though a little early on in life. You're like, maybe you see a politician sign and it says the last name of the president and it'll say the last name of the vice president. Maybe you're young and you're like, that is one weird name right there. Let's just say it's grass mailbox. You're like, who's grass mailbox? I don't know. I mean, but then you realize like, oh wait, it's both the vice president and the president's last name, but together, But then like you have like Senate and Congress and all of those other ones. That just says their sign. They don't have a vice president. That just says their name. like Jonathan Grass. Jonathan Grass. Finally, we know who Grass is. I'm just making up that name, but and yeah, that was very something too. And like in Canada, you have the Prime Minister. In England, you also have the Prime Minister. I know a lot of countries go by Prime Minister. I think Australia does. I could be wrong. And New Zealand. I think so. I think Prime Minister is more popular in other countries. I'm pretty sure. But then other countries could have something different. Like Jake was saying, the Queen of England. I mean, she doesn't have as much power as the Prime Minister, but I mean, she's still the Queen of England. The Queen of England is way more popular than the Prime Minister, And I mean, that's just royal blood you got. The Queen of England, but like the Queen of England also can do some stuff. Yes, she's living in luxury, but also like she can knight people and do a few things. And it's very strict though. If you're gonna be the Prime Minister, I know like there's like a lot of like when you're like the Queen or the King of England, then like there's all these restrictions put in place. Like I can only do this every 12 o'clock in the day. I have tea time is 2 o'clock and 12 o'clock each day. It's very strict. You're on a very strict schedule. I also heard this thing like, if you're traveling, like if you're on the royal family and you're traveling, you have to wear black clothes. I don't know why, but I heard that. So there are a lot of restrictions put in place for the Queen or the King of England. Not just for them, but like also for everyone related, to them. I mean, everyone in the royal family has restrictions put in place. But yes, they have like it really nice and they get to do all this cool, crazy stuff. But I mean, also there's a few restrictions that are not. Well, I would say Americans would look at those restrictions awfully. They would be like, that does not look fun, but maybe in the royal family it's just normal and they don't really care, but I don't know that, so then there's also that to think about too. And then like there's also, let me just go like Antarctica, Greenland. Those countries aren't really populated. I mean, everyone that lives in Antarctica are scientists or polar bears. I don't know about polar bears, but animals. So maybe the animals made some sort of government in Antarctica. Maybe they did that. I mean, we don't know because we can't talk to animals. But maybe they did. So maybe there is government in Antarctica, but we just don't know about it. Like, yeah. And also, there could be a lot of governments and everywhere. Who knows? Maybe fish have government. I mean, I really don't know. Maybe squirrels have their own government. Maybe the squirrel that keeps stealing Jake's food is known as the runaway candidate. I do not know, but I don't know. We don't know. I mean, I'd say animals, they more focus on living, and humans kind of already got that kind of like figured out, and they're kind of just kind of like, okay, let's do government now. Who knows? What's the next step? Maybe there'll be another step to, we got work, all this different stuff that could be tricky. And I mean, so yeah, there are also that, but like with animals, I mean, they are hunting each day. They are getting food, water, they're doing all this stuff. And humans aren't doing that anymore. I mean, maybe you're a human, you're living in the middle of nowhere. You're watching this episode because, I don't know, it's very entertaining. And you're like, hey, I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm hunting each day. Well, then you are, but the majority of humans aren't. I'll say that. And so, yeah, I know like, yeah. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of different governments. The U.S. government, the Canadian government, the English government, just a lot of different governments. And me and Jake are talking about the U.S. government. Maybe you live in a different country and you're like, that is not it. You got it. So really, and we're like, well, we don't live in that country. I mean, we don't really know too much about them. I mean, we know a fair amount, but we know a lot about, I mean, people could think about the U.S. Government and they would think about president. They would be like, oh yeah, they have a president, but they might not know that we have like all these other different stuff. And we could think that about England, like, oh, they just have the prime minister and queen, but maybe they have like all this other different stuff. I'm sure they do, so that's something also to think about. And it's very important to also think about that. In animals, don't look at an animal and think, oh, that animal is super, I don't know, not I can't think of the right word. It was on the top of my tongue, but now I can't think. Like fancy. Nah, there we go. Fancy. Like that animal's not fancy. Maybe they're the fanciest animal in the world. They are the president of all animals. And you think they're like, ugh. Maybe that's what animals think of us. They're like looking at us, they're like, ugh. And it's like the Queen of England, and they're like, ugh. So we don't know. So that's also something to think about. There's a lot of government, politics, so much stuff in the world put in place, or in the United States put in place. So then for a lot of different reasons, maybe you're like, I don't think that's that smart. I don't think it's that smart to have all these different things. Well, when you really get into it, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, that's actually pretty smart. And there's also, and like the thing is with electing president, normally we run off electoral colleges, and that's something also put in place. And there's a lot of stuff put in place. The time change, that's something put in place. There's a lot of different things. I mean, if the president asked for another time change nowadays, well, I'm sure that would not happen. But we have one now. I don't know how that started. That's I should look that up. But I mean, we have one, and I don't know why. I mean, I know we had the time change a couple days ago. I'm waking up at 6 each morning, or 5. I don't know, really early, or earlier than I normally do. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh, it's time change. And it's like 10 o'clock at night, or 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, gosh, it feels so late. I'm going to like fall asleep. I check and it's like 8 o'clock. And I'm like, well, that's not as late as I thought. And, well, where I live, the sun sets like at 4 o'clock now. So, well, most of my active time is early in the morning now. And yeah, but it's been really nice now. And I'm going a little bit off topic of politics and politicians. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure that Jake's dad actually was running for, forget, but your dad was running for something in the political game. Isn't that right, Jake?
That is indeed correct. And my father is also a politics man, just like your father.
Yeah. My dad hasn't ran for anything, but he did major in political science. So yeah, I mean, that's also cool too. And yeah, and I think it's a different experience, the political game, than what you would expect. That could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And you learn all this different stuff. I mean, my dad took political science and said that he learned so much stuff that he wasn't expecting. So there's all this stuff in politics and all this different stuff, and it's very confusing and complicated. But then when I think it takes time. I mean, I thought I knew so much, and now I'm here kind of like, what else is there? And I do know a fair amount about politics and politicians, but I mean, I can't think about it right now. So I think that is going to finish me up. Before I leave, I'm going to take a sip of tea, because this is, well, tea talk.
Yeah, so I will add a few final notes. And really, I really like it. Callum brought up how animals, they don't really have, they might have a government. And I was thinking about it, and animals, think about a queen bee. Now, that is essentially a government. A beehive, you got all the worker bees. You have, well, it starts off at the bottom of dead bees. Now, it's pretty hilarious, but dead bees are on the scale. And then you go worker bees, and then you have all the way up, and the worker bees help the queen. The queens pretty much run the entire thing, and everybody just works for the queen. Now, that's essentially a government. But Callum does make a point. I don't think that polar bears do. I mean, they might have an election, but maybe, you never know. But voting is really the thing that connects every single country, because a government or anything that has a leader has voting and people have their opinions. And make sure to do your part as a citizen to vote in your country. So that is going to wrap us up. Callum, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, one more thing, and that is, that is true. Like queen bees, queen ants, also. There are like different queens and kings of different things, and that's more dictatorship. But they could have a government too. You know, they could. I mean, I can honestly kind of see polar bears in the political game. I don't know why. I can just see them in the political game for some random reason. I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, no, that's gonna finish me up.
Awesome. So thank you so much for watching today's podcast. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Callum, would you like to tell them about our Instagram?
Yes, our Instagram. We have an Instagram, which most of you probably know by this point. It's in the description below. You can find different bloopers, bonus content, really cool pictures that might be made by me. But yeah, so you can find all that cool stuff on our Instagram. And so, yeah.
And we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.